Welcome to In the Spotlight, a regular podcast from the Witham, Barnard Castle's Community Arts Centre.
I'm delighted to say, joining me in the spotlight this week are Rhys Morgan and Rob West, who are bringing their show. Hang on a minute, let me try that again. First one on a Monday. First one on a Monday morning. Good God. Oh dear. I'll go back to bed and get up again. Oh dear. So joining me in the spotlight this week are Morgan and West, Rhys Morgan and Rob West, who are bringing their show Unbelievable Science to the Witham on Friday, April the 7th at 2:00 in the afternoon. The show's suitable for ages 7+. Gents, a very warm welcome along to the Witham.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Excellent
Nice
stuff.
to be here.
Yes, it is.
I mean, we're not there, obviously.
No,
We're on a computer screen. But like,
Not even
emotionally,
that.
it's nice to be there.
Not even that when people are listening to this.
True. Actually, we're just in someone's ears.
Yeah.
It's nice to be in people's ears.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff. So you might as well tell us the Morgan and West story. I believe you met while you were at university doing sensible things like studying for science degrees.
I mean, you say sensible things.
Sensible thing, yeah.
It's, I'm
For a given value of sensible.
Yes. A long time ago now. We met
In a galaxy far away.
We did a lot of student theatre whilst not studying for our science degrees, essentially, and met during that, and got on like a house on fire, and I got into magic as a sideline, which is a slightly odd thing, given that.
This is not the Unbelievable Science is a science show. It's not a magic show. But we met doing plays, and then sort of became friends over doing magic, and then started doing magic shows together in 2008.
Yeah, gosh.
And essentially
Never stopped.
never stopped. And we did magic shows for years, and we did magic shows for adults, and we did some stuff on TV. And then we started doing shows for children, like magic shows for children.
And we discovered that we actually quite enjoyed that because you got to be even sillier than doing them for adults.
Because what we do is a lot of mucking about.
Yeah.
But as our career first started and after university and stuff, before we became full-time performers, we were teachers. And so we were teachers with science degrees,
Very briefly,
like for a year and a bit.
Yeah.
And then we left education and moved full-time into performance because it was sort of happening, and so we followed it. And then after many years of doing magic shows and then doing magic shows for children, we were like, wouldn't it be nice to do a science show for kids that's sort of our style, but that's sort of educational and, for want of a better term, real?
Yeah.
Because our magic shows are fun and silly, but they're also fake because magic's not real.
It's the funny thing about a magic show is that you stand on stage and you do something that looks terribly impressive, and then you're not allowed to tell people how it's done. Because if you tell people how it's done, it becomes very unimpressive.
It's not impressive
very
anymore.
quickly.
Whereas with the science show, the thing we enjoy about the science show is that we stand on stage and do things that are very impressive, and then go, and here's how it works.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Loosely, there's not a huge amount of like detailed explanations in the science show because that's pretty dry.
But you don't have to lie.
But importantly, you can tell the truth about what's happening.
Yeah. And
So do you
that's
still
a lot of fun.
do you still do magic, or is it purely science that you do these days? Science that you do.
We do
these
magic
days?
shows as well. We still do magic shows. In fact, we're currently in the process of writing a new magic show for the year to come. So it's definitely still part of our wheelhouse, as it were. But we realised over the years that the thing we enjoy was the performance and the creation of a show more than necessarily the fooling of an audience with a trick. So we realised we don't just have to do magic shows. We can do magic shows, we can do science shows. In the last couple of years, we did an outdoor production of The Three Musketeers with a friend of ours.
Because you had no magic and no
science, just mucking about and
just very loosely based on the story of the Three Musketeers. Very loosely based. Yeah.
Basically sword fights and puns.
Yeah, that's
what that was.
Yeah.
And so our shows definitely have a tone to them and have a kind of vibe to them, but we try not to restrict ourselves anymore with like, oh, we do this and we are this kind of act. We just do fun, silly stuff, and sometimes it's magic, and sometimes it's science, and sometimes it's whatever we feel like doing.
So has the science show developed over the years? I presume because you're sort of experts in the field, you can put anything in there that you want.
The science show is all about the scientific method. We took a long time coming to what we wanted it to be about, because initially I think we did start playing with it in a way a lot of science shows you see, where trying to explain a lot of what was happening in a great amount of detail. And that you can't do that on stage because you're doing lots of different stuff, and you're not there to educate. You're there to
Edutain. Yeah, people sometimes come up to us after the show, or quite often come up to us after the show and say, "Oh, I wish science lessons had been like that at school."
You wouldn't learn anything.
You wouldn't learn anything.
You wouldn't know anything.
It's because the idea of the show is about introducing people and kids to the idea of how scientific methodology works, and it's about infusing them about science and going, "Isn't this cool? There's science behind it." But if we there's a bit in the show where we make a thing, we squirt a thing with water and it blows up. It's really cool. And now in that, we could talk about what's happening in there and displacement reactions.
I mean, you could talk about it.
Magnesium is more reactive than silver because it's smaller and it's more electrodense. And so, therefore, when it bonds with... But the bit is cool, but the bit after that, which is really interesting, but is a thing that you really need to have quite a lot of understanding to get into. And the thing that makes science great is that it is the understanding of cool and interesting things in the world, and just everything in the world is about that. But we didn't want to make the show full of detailed explanations of, well, the way this... Because that loses people, and the show's not really about that. It's not education, it's edutainment.
It's there with the hope that people will leave the show and want to gain that understanding for themselves afterwards through enthusiasm.
You're not aiming to send kids home to blow things up then?
Wow. What I'm aiming for kids to go home to do is go home and look up how to blow things up themselves.
Yes. Although not in a kind of government watch list kind of way.
Yeah, not in a watch list kind of way.
You know, in a safe way. So the show hasn't really, like, little tweaks happen, but the show has been 95% the same since it's finished its Edinburgh Fringe run, I think, in 2019. Really,
yeah.
We've made lots of little changes and little tweaks. A lot of tweaks that an audience, if they saw it in September 2019 and now, they wouldn't notice
notice at all,
because they're all tweaks that make it a little bit better every time. But
there's no like huge new section.
No. We never replace any sections or change them out because the show is it's a proper show as well. It's got an arc. It's got a flow. It's not like a cabaret where you can kind of drop in things in and out. It's an entity of its own.
Each bit is meant to build on the bit before. So the first thing we do, which is a bunch of chemical reactions that sort of light up or set on fire or blow up or whatever, is the idea is that's about observation, because in a scientific context, observation is one of the very first things you do, and it's because it's about just looking at things and noting down what happens. And then the next one of the later bits is about questioning things and how we ask questions and how questions can have different answers depending on how you approach them. And then a later bit is about having ideas about things and testing ideas. And those bits have to come in that order, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. You don't start with, let's have an idea, and then let's build it. Like sort of and so the show is structured such that it's meant to, be about the scientific method and about the way that you go about doing science in a logical and structured way, but with lots of silliness and jokes and cool tricks and explosions and stuff like that along the way.
What's with the Victorian gentleman look?
That was sort of from the genesis of Morgan and West, as it were, way back in the distant past, for back 2008 or 2008, I think, as you're supposed to say, aren't you? Yeah. Then we decided we wanted a strong look, and we didn't want to look like most magicians. And most magicians at the time were wearing suit jackets and a shirt and suit trousers, and
they just look like some random person at a wedding.
You know, and so, because often they were some random person at a wedding.
Yeah.
And so we decided we didn't want to do that. So we had two options that we came up with. One was jeans and a t-shirt, and one was this kind of classical golden era of magic Victorian look. We like dressing up.
Yeah, dressing up's fun.
So
like, it's a thing we find interesting where people are like, but why the dress up? It's fun.
Yeah,
it's that's part of it. It's like, if you went to see a Shakespeare show play and they weren't in costume, you'd be a bit like, you know, like, and even if the costume, because loads of Shakespeare plays are done set in the 70s or the 1850s or like, but they're in costumes because it tells you things about the characters and it informs you, but also it's just more fun to watch. And our sort of attitude when it comes to making anything, whether it's a science show or a magic show or a theatre show, is we want it to be like the theatrical equivalent of a Phil Spector wall of sound. We want like fun, interesting, entertaining stuff constantly. We want the costumes to be cool. We want the set to be cool. We want the sound to be good. We want the lights to be interesting. I just want everything, everywhere, all at once, essentially.
So putting on the costumes, do you take on characters then, or are you pretty much yourselves when you get on the stage?
Morgan and West have a very distinct character from ourselves. They're kind of heightened versions of ourselves, is the way that we often think about them. But they are distinct entities, I think, Gestalt entities from us.
Distinct Gestalt entities from us. Because again, theatre is itself heightened, and theatre for kids is particularly heightened, and kids understand character and buy into character way better than adults do. And so
you get to have fun with it. You get to have fun, and you get to push the envelope a little bit and be a little bit larger than life with it all.
And sort of without meaning to compare ourselves to these people, Morecambe and Wise were characters. And sort of Laurel and Hardy were characters. Sort of every person that steps onto stage plays a character. They're not really like every comedian steps on stage and plays a character. They're not really like that in real life. And we have the same thing, and it's just more noticeable in a double act because double acts have dynamics as well. And so you very rarely get a double act where the characters are the same person or very similar. You're going to have a difference between them. And because we do shows for families and kids, those differences are often quite stark.
Yeah.
So explain what people can expect when they come along to the show on April the 7th. Is it going to be lots of bangs and blowings up, or is it going to be lots of chat and jokes and that sort of thing?
Both of those things. Although actually, there are explosions. There aren't very many loud bangs.
No, there aren't actually.
If you don't contain an explosion within a container, if you just have the chemicals and they kind of go rather than bang. Which is good because some kids don't like loud bangs. Yeah. So there's lots of explosions and cool looking things. And
lightning on stage.
We do a lightning bit. We have sort of,
but we also have a real genuine
stuff and tricks and things that go upside down and
a genuine experiment. Because one of the things that you'll see in science is people, let's do an experiment. It's like it's not an experiment. You're doing a demonstration.
It's not an experiment if you know what's going to happen.
If you know what's going to happen. Whereas the experiment, we don't know what the outcome's going to be, and so we do an experiment on the whole audience.
Interactive bits, and there's lots of jokes and there's lots of silliness, and there's sort of lots of, for want of a better term, mucking about.
Yeah, but a lot of mucking about.
It is also full of science and full of real science, and everything that we're saying is happening on stage is happening on stage. One of the things we're very proud of in this show is that we often have parents come up to us afterwards, or people come to see the show afterwards, who are scientists who tell us how much they enjoyed it. Which is a real sort of, we really like that because it shows that we've done our job properly, that someone who actually knows what we're talking about and knows what is going on and knows and understands what we're saying can say, yes, I really enjoyed that, rather than going, oh, you slightly fudged that bit, or you maybe didn't explain that properly. And we often get, sort of people that are biologists or chemists or ophthalmologists or whatever come up to us after the show and say, I really enjoyed that. It was really good. You really know your science.
It sounds like the sort of show where we're going to have the fire alarm switched off.
Oh yes,
you 100% will have to have the fire alarm switched off.
Yeah.
There is no doubt about it.
Big old cloud of smoke at one point that will set off any form of fire alarm instantly.
We just start a fire on stage.
Yeah, we do genuinely. So yeah,
excellent. We'll perhaps mention it to the local fire brigade as well. Get the retained lads on standby just in case.
We've never burnt a theatre down yet.
No, we've tried a few times.
Yeah.
Do your best or do your worst.
Yeah.
So, what's the rest of the year? Do you tour all the time? Are you looking forward to a busy year ahead?
So the science show now is actually finishing up. It's been on tour on and off since 2019.
We took a couple of years off for some reason. So it's been touring longer than most of our shows usually would.
Yeah.
So this is this is basically your last chance to see it.
Yeah. So it's going out for the Easter holidays for 2 weeks solid up and down the country. Mostly up this time.
Mostly up. A lot of up.
Lots of up. Yeah, a lot of up this Easter.
Small amount of down.
Yeah. And then it's going away for a while, and then we're focusing on writing and rehearsing this new show, and that will be coming out in the autumn.
Yeah. So our summer is going to be mostly rehearsing, building props, making costume, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So does that mean that you're taking something up to Edinburgh this year?
No,
we're not. No, we haven't.
The time that Edinburgh is happening is when we are making and building the show.
Yeah.
Okay.
The time if we were going to Edinburgh, the time we'd be making the building the show is right now.
Yeah.
when we're touring.
Panically going, oh gosh, we haven't got anything. It's the shows we do now are just really, really difficult to do in a 15-minute get-in.
We make shows of a scale now that is hard to fit into a Fringe timetable.
Yeah. So the show that we're bringing, Unbelievable Science, did the Edinburgh Fringe, but we had, I think a crew of 6 backstage waiting to run the show on.
And we'd have to build it in like 20 minutes. And it was tight.
It was tight. Whereas in a theatre, our get-in time's about 4 hours.
Yeah.
So there is a big van full of stuff that we turn up with, and it's just the two of us. So it takes a bit of time.
Excellent stuff. Well, listen, guys, thanks very much for spending some time with us. As I mentioned, the show Unbelievable Science with Morgan and West comes to the Witham on Friday, April the 7th. It starts at 2:00. It's suitable for ages 7+, and the tickets are £12 and £10. We look forward to seeing you there. Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Lovely.
Lovely.
Oh, pleasure.
I feel quite exhausted now.
Yeah, sorry, we talk quite a lot.
Yeah.
Better than not at all when you're trying to get something to put online. So they're really good. Excellent, guys. Thanks ever so much for your time, and we'll see you when you get up here.
Great.
Wonderful. Thanks very much.
I'll see you guys. See you soon.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to In the Spotlight from the Witham, Barnard Castle's Community Arts Centre. We'll be back soon with another episode. In the meantime, please head over to mixcloud.com/the_Witham and give us a follow.